Today, we retaking a deep dive into four of the most influential investors alive and the portfolios they hold right now. And then we going to do something a bit unusual. We going to rewind each of those portfolios back 5 years and see exactly how they would have performed in the exact same market. Same timeline, same environment, but four completely different outcomes. One of these portfolios would have turned $10,000 into $65,000. Another drops to around $19,000. One barely doubles. And all of them are based on the same market. By the end of this breakdown, you'll understand which style comes out on top, which one falls behind, and most importantly, why that matters for every single dollar you invest. Here's how we're going to approach this. First, we'll explore what each legend owns today, their biggest bets, their hidden convictions, the sectors they favor, and the risks they're willing to take. Then we'll look at where their portfolios overlap and where their strategies split into completely separate worlds. And once that foundation is set, we'll rewind their current portfolios back over the last 5 years. That lets us compare each investing philosophy under the exact same circumstances. No cherry picking. No hypothetical timing. Same market. 4 different worldviews. And the performance gap is honestly staggering. The best style grows nearly 560%. The weakest? Right around 90%. That's a difference that can change someone's financial life. But before we break down each investor, let's talk about how much these icons actually agree on. And the answer is almost nothing. Across more than 120 combined positions, they only share 3 stocks. 3. That's a 2.5% overlap, meaning 97% of their portfolios do not touch each other at all. They are operating with completely different styles, philosophies, and beliefs about what the future looks like. And yet those 3 shared stocks reveal exactly what the smartest investors on the planet quietly agree on. The first shared position is Alphabet Google. Warren Buffett owns it. Nancy Pelosi owns it. Bill Ackman owns it. 3 investors with incredibly different mindsets, but they all land on the same conclusion. Google Search, YouTube, and Google Cloud aren't just businesses, they are the toll roads of the modern economy. The world runs through them. If you believe in the long-term importance of data, discovery, advertising, and cloud computing, Alphabet becomes nearly impossible to ignore. The second overlap is Amazon. Again, Buffett owns it, Pelosi owns it, Ackman owns it, and it makes sense. Amazon Web Services is the backbone of global cloud infrastructure. Their logistics network is unmatched. Their consumer reach is massive. Amazon isn't just a retailer, it's infrastructure. It's scale. It's the engine behind thousands of companies you've never even heard of. And the third overlap is Apple. Buffett owns it directly. Pelosi owns it directly. And Bill Gates is tied to it indirectly through Berkshire Hathaway, where he holds a huge position. Apple is simply the most profitable consumer machine ever created. Services, hardware, ecosystem lock-in, brand power, it checks every box a long-term investor could ask for. So the entire overlap, the only things all these giants agree on, comes down to 3 pillars: search, cloud, and an iconic brand. If you wanted to build a portfolio that every investing legend respects, these 3 companies would be the foundation. But once you move outside those 3, everything splits apart. And that's where things get interesting. Because when we roll each investor's current portfolio backward over the same 5-year window, the difference in outcomes is enormous. Nearly a 5-to-1 gap between the strongest style and the weakest. And these aren't random people. These are some of the most successful investors in modern history. So let's break down what's driving those differences. We'll start with Warren Buffett. Today, Buffett's portfolio is dominated by one company, Apple. It makes up nearly a quarter of his total holdings. Roll that portfolio back over the past 5 years, and Apple does most of the heavy lifting. American Express and Bank of America add steady support. Kraft Heinz pulls the other way. Buffett's entire approach is centered around financials, energy, and consumer staples businesses that generate cash, survive downturns, and compound slowly. And when you rewind his portfolio 5 years, you get a return of about 96%. Solid, steady, a compound annual growth rate of around 14%. Classic Buffett, predictable, conservative, and durable. Next, we have Bill Gates. Gates today is anchored by two giants, Microsoft and Berkshire Hathaway. When you roll those positions back, Microsoft carries a massive amount of weight. Waste Management and Canadian National Railway add strong, consistent growth. Coupang and FedEx supply a little pressure on the downside. Gates' world is built on infrastructure, transportation, stability, and proven operators. And when you rewind his portfolio 5 years, he lands at around 195% growth. About a 24 PERCEN TCAGR. Strong, reliable performance with no wild swings. Very on brand for Gates, structured, long-term, and grounded. Then we shift to Bill Ackman. Ackman runs a very different strategy. He's extremely concentrated. His portfolio today is built on dominant platforms and large-scale consumer engines. Google, Amazon, Uber, Hilton, Chipotle, Brookfield. When you roll that mix backward, almost all the performance comes from the winners. And because he's concentrated, the upside is massive when he's right, and the pain is visible when he's wrong. Over the same 5-year window, Ackman's current portfolio would have returned about 260%. A compound annual growth rate of around 28%. High conviction. High reward. High risk. That's the Ackman style. And finally, we have Nancy Pelosi. Her portfolio today sits directly on top of the AI wave. NVIDIA, Broadcom, Google, Microsoft, Palo Alto Networks, CrowdStrike, Vistra. When you rewind that basket, it absolutely erupts. NVIDIA and Broadcom alone deliver enormous gains. Palo Alto and CrowdStrike amplify the growth. Vistra adds strength from the energy side. Tesla is one of the few names that pulls a bit downward. But overall, Pelosi's 5-year rewind produces about 556% growth. A 45% CAGR. That is what happens when you position yourself in front of the strongest technological tailwind of our lifetime. Now let's stack my own portfolio next to theirs, not because I'm a legend, but because I follow a clear framework. I invest in AI hardware, semiconductors, cloud software, and a small but intentional basket of asymmetrical frontier technology bets. When you rewind my current portfolio 5 years, it lands around 932% growth. Nearly a 60% CAGR. Not because every pick was perfect, but because the strategy was clear and focused. NVIDIA, Palantir, Broadcom, AppLovin, and several semiconductor names would have driven most of the upside. A small crypto allocation added both volatility and returns. And just like any real investor, I have losers' early-stage tech bets, and a few speculative positions that haven't hit their stride yet. Now here's where things get even more interesting. When you compare my portfolio to theirs, the overlap tells its own story. I share about 27% overlap with Pelosi names like NVIDIA, Google, Broadcom, Microsoft, CrowdStrike. I share about 15% overlap with Buffett, Apple, and Alphabet. About 8% overlap with Gates, Microsoft, and Berkshire Hathaway, and about 6% with Ackman, mostly Alphabet. So my portfolio leans heavily into AI, semiconductors, software, and frontier tech, because that's the world I understand. I studied engineering. I worked in electronics in the military. I worked in machine learning at Amazon. So naturally, my investing style leans toward the future. And that brings us to the most important point of this entire video. Every investor eventually chooses a style based on how they see the world. Buffett sees stability and durability. Gates sees infrastructure and systems. Ackman sees platforms and scale. Pelosi sees networks and exponential technology. And I lean toward the future of computing. None of them are right or wrong, but one of them is right for you. So as you look at these four legends and my own approach, ask yourself a simple question. Which style feels closest to how you see the world? Because once you understand your worldview, you can build a portfolio that actually reflects who you are as an investor. Not who your friend is, not what social media is screaming about, not what the news says you should do, but what makes sense for you. And that's the goal. To build a portfolio that aligns with your beliefs, your temperament, your understanding of the world, and your tolerance for risk. Because the best portfolio is the one you can hold for years without panicking. The one that makes sense to you. The one that matches your worldview. So let me know in the comments, which investing style do you connect with the most? Are you a Buffett type steady and stable? A Gates type structured and infrastructure driven? An Ackman type concentrated and high conviction? A Pelosi type riding the biggest technological shifts? Or do you lean toward future driven frontier tech? Thanks for watching.